There's no turning back now, Meg. We did it.
Hey.
Welcome back, not only Meg, but you, beautiful listeners, to another chilling, daunting, haunting, creative, awesome, amazing episode of the Yortown Podcast, where not only do we kind of dive into maybe forgotten tales, some true crime, some history, sometimes local, but Meg made a comment last week. She goes, I can't believe we didn't do anything from Maine. Spoiler alert. We're going to do something from Maine. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I'm excited about it.
Yeah?
I am. It's one that's close to home-ish.
Ish. It's a place where I'm sure, well, I know that I want to go and you want to go as well because maybe they have some delicious food that you would enjoy.
They do.
Have you been there?
I have.
Oh.
I haven't since I was younger, but I have family that lives there.
Mm-hmm.
So, I have.
Okay. Well, there's that. Okay. Well, either way, we're talking about Maine, and we're going to kind of maybe unravel a little bit of a spine-tingling story, Meg.
Ooh.
Would you say it was spine-tingling?
Spine-tingling.
Of Mary Cohen, dubbed the Borgia of Maine, or Borgia, depends how you say it. I worked with a guy named Dick Borgia, so I'm going to say Borgia a lot because it's spelled exactly like that. Maybe I've been saying it wrong the whole time. Some say Borgia, some say Borgia. So we'll give you a little bit of both. It's kind of like roof or roof. What do you say?
We're getting into this again.
Okay, we're not.
I say roof.
Roof as well. Okay. But Mary, the Borgia of Maine, was Maine's first and deadliest serial killer. She confessed to 31 murders, but some believe her true count may be far, far higher. So this is a tale of poison, greed, and a woman whose deadly charm lured many to their untimely demise. So grab your favorite beverage, just like we did. Get comfortable. Unless you're at work, don't grab your favorite beverage, unless it's water. Then it would work out. Ooh, did you hear that droplet? And we're going to get into the dark history of Mary Cohen. But before we do, I feel like we should do the introduction, Meg. What do you think?
Yeah.
When should we do it?
Right now.
My water's delicious. How about yours?
Very refreshing.
So there have been many female murderers over the centuries called a Borgia or Borgia, in reference to Lucrezia Borgia, the Italian Renaissance era noblewoman who, as stories claim, poisoned her husbands and lovers once they were no longer useful to her. What? What are you laughing at?
Nothing.
The name. How would you say it?
Lucrezia.
Lucretia? That sounds way better than whatever I said. That's one of the many reasons that Meg is here.
How did you even say that?
Pretty creatively.
That was a good one.
So to understand kind of what led Mary Cohen down such a dark and twisted path, we must first look at where she actually came from. I mean, that's a good start, right? Born in 1863 in a small rural town in Maine, she was born as one of several children to Jonathan F. Knights, who was a veteran of the Civil War, and Appia.
Sure.
Yeah.
That one I don't know.
B. Knights. Little is known about Mary and her early life. Obviously, it was in 1863, not a lot of documentation, but we do know that it was marked by hardship and tragedy. Maine, obviously during this period, was rugged, isolated, probably lots of lobsters, with small farming communities struggling to survive. Mary's family was no exception to this. They were raised in a modest home. She quickly learned the harsh realities of life. Her father was an abusive man who drank way too heavily and was said to have influenced Mary's cold and calculating nature. Her mother, on the other hand, more reserved, a woman who taught Mary about herbs and home remedies. Little did anyone know that actually these lessons would eventually transform Mary into one of the most feared poisoners of all time.
Sheesh.
The age of 16, 17, 20, I don't know. Nobody's really sure. The internet's not exactly. But it was at a fairly young age. Mary married a young farmer, Willis W. Bean of nearby Dixmont, Maine. They lived seemingly an ordinary life. The couple had 3 children, Grace, Alice, and Mabel. At some point during their marriage, Willis expressed a desire to become a physician, a decision encouraged by Mary, who also wanted to dabble in into being a physician, the medicine, and all that good stuff. However, the family was pretty poor, and they also had to take care of the kids. In 1884, Gracie was discovered smothered to death by a neighbor at the family home. When Mary was informed, she replied indifferently that she had already knew that the child had died about half an hour earlier. Despite the suspicious circumstances, there was no official investigation that was conducted, and many residents of Dixmont suspected Mary of killing Gracie, but nothing really comes of it.
Huh.
Over the next 2 years, Alice and Mabel, they die, Meg. All 3 kids gone, but these 2, they died of a mysterious stomach pain. Once again, no investigation, and the deaths were soon forgotten after their burials at the Plymouth Cemetery. Despite these tragedies, though, Willis was still determined to pursue a medical career, enrolling in a dubious institute that sold diplomas for $25. However, this practice was soon declared fraudulent, and a new state law prohibiting the sale of fake diplomas was enacted just before Willis could obtain his. Did you mention that? Hey, I want to be a doctor. You want to be a doctor? Cool. Can you read a book? Yeah. Got $25? Yep. Congratulations, doctor. That's scary.
Yeah.
Undeterred, though, both he and Mary remained determined to get their diplomas, deciding to travel to an out-of-state institution of a state that has 2 O's and a high in the middle, Ohio. Before their departure, Willis confided to his parents that he had planned to invest in a farm where he would live upon his return to Maine. The farm was purchased, and the mortgage was handed over to the Willis's father, but was never officially recorded. After borrowing around $200, the couple then leaves for Ohio to enroll in the institution. January 6th, 1888, Willis's parents received a letter informing them that their son had died. Guess what, Meg? Under mysterious circumstances. Shock.
Dun, dun, dun.
There it is.
I wonder how many times these mysterious circumstances can happen without being investigated.
I think we're going to find out. The cause, though, was later determined to be a stomach pain, eerily similar to the symptoms of the children who had died in previous years. Mary soon returns to stay with Willis's parents, and shortly after, the unrecorded mortgage disappears. Possessing the deed to the farm, Mary claimed ownership of the land and then sells it for $2,000. According to an 1899 newspaper article detailing Cohen's story, upon returning to Dixmont in 1890, Mary claimed the agreement to pay back Bean's parents, and that never occurred. And that's when she sold the farm for $2,000, which is equivalent to about $66,000 today. Crazy.
I wouldn't mind getting a farm.
Yeah?
For that price.
Yeah, for $2,000?
Yeah.
Or even $66,000?
That's what I was talking about.
Man. Well, if any farmers out there want to hook us up with a farm, all you really want to do is get the barn, turn it into a wedding venue, and make a bunch of money, right?
Sure,
yeah. All right.
Yeah, sure.
I don't want to clean poop and milk cows. But anyways.
You mean you don't want a Highland cow?
Not at all. Can you eat a Highland cow?
They're pets.
Oh, no. Don't want one then. Sometime later, though, Mary, who didn't probably have a Highland cow, then marries George H. Taylor, a laborer from Dixmont who worked at the Lewiston Mills where the newlyweds moved to live. In 1891, Taylor, a member of the Independent Order of the Odd Fellows, which we might have done an episode on that, go back to one of our first couple of episodes, dies after 4 days of, guess what, Meg? Stomach pain.
Coincidence? I think not.
Under circumstances similar to the deaths of all of Mary's previous family members except for the first child. Although he was expected to have a life insurance policy through the Oddfellows, it was actually void because he didn't pay his dues. However, sympathetic members of the order then raised several $100s as a donation to the supposedly grieving widow. Yikes. So then, a few months after he passes away. Mary then gets married again to Mr. Cohen, a widowed farmer with an 8-year-old son named Willis. Shortly after the marriage, the entire set of farm buildings mysteriously burned to the ground. Neighbors who arrived to help extinguish the fire found the family's clothing, dishes, and other belongings tied up in bundles, ready to be carried out. Rumors then spread that young Willis was being abused by his stepmother, who allegedly beat him for the smallest of offenses. September 14th, 1894, Willis was struck. Never guess what, Meg?
Ear pain.
Stomach pains.
I should have known.
After eating some green apples, a physician was then called to the home, and after examining the boy, prescribed some medicine, assuring the family that Willis would recover within a few hours. However, 2 days later, the young boy dies in excruciating pain. Given Mary's suspicious history of similar deaths, and the fact that her husband had also fallen ill with the similar symptoms but survived, authorities decided to exhume Willis's body. His organs were sent for analysis at Bowdoin College in Brunswick.
Sure.
Pretty sure I said that wrong. That's me. Then the autopsy is done, and it reveals that Willis's body contains a lethal amount of arsenic, enough to kill what, Meg?
A full-grown ox.
And he's just a small boy. That is disgusting.
Mm-hmm.
Unbelievable. And the most common symptoms of this arsenic poisoning is severe abdominal pain, vomiting, and diarrhea. Exactly what Mary Cohen's other alleged victims experienced before they die. Acting swiftly, the police arrest Mary for the murder of her stepson. Previously, she had threatened to take legal action against anyone who accused her of poisoning, but upon being taken into custody, she breaks down in tears. During the trial, which occurred in 1895 in Bangor, it was a scandalous affair, with Maine's newspapers covering each twist and turn. The story reached publications as far west as California. Doesn't really get much more west on the U.S. than there, with reporters dubbing Cohen the Borgia of Maine. Substantial evidence was presented implicating her in the poisoning of young Willis. A neighborhood girl had witnessed Mrs. Cohen putting a white powder into the boy's medicine and potentially even the apple, which obviously the documentation and everything wasn't as good in the late 1800s. And but the person did not testify due to her father's concern for her safety, which probably smart. Despite the lack of testimony, the prosecution successfully demonstrated that the lethal dose of arsenic found in Willis's body could have only have been administered deliberately. Several days of deliberation, the jury returns with a guilty verdict. Cohen remained expressionless as the verdict was read, while her attorney J.F. Robinson announced plans to file for a retrial. However, by June, the request for a retrial had been withdrawn. Cohen was never tried for the other 5 deaths she was associated with, 3 of her own children, 2 husbands. But she was sentenced to life imprisonment for the murder of Willis Bean. While in prison, Mary frequently spoke with reporters, responded to callers, pretty much anybody that was interested in her case. She confided to one reporter that she had hired a private detective who had supposedly found evidence supporting her innocence, expressing confidence that she would eventually be a free woman. Her hopes were dashed on February 19th, 1896, when she was officially sentenced to life in prison for the murder. Mary was in prison at the Main Street Prison in Thomastown, for the next 2 years. In 1898, her examining physician petitioned Governor Powers for her pardon, citing her declining health and her wish to die peacefully at her home in Dixmont. Despite her failing health, Mary gave birth to a child while in prison, which was a daughter by Mr. Cohen, the last husband, the man she had allegedly tried to kill earlier and killed the stepson. Tragically, both she and the child died somewhere shortly afterward. Wild, right?
So, did she die during childbirth in prison?
Yes.
How that was?
Yep. She was in prison, had the baby, and then so I read conflicting stories. One, she died at birth. The child lived, which should have happened. But then I think the child then passed is another one that I heard. She passes away. Then the child did a couple of days later for both there. But either way, the baby and her pass away in prison.
Gotcha.
So Mary Cohen was one of the many Borgias or Black Widow serial killers in the United States during the mid to late 19th centuries, a term commonly used, obviously, described to women who poison their husbands, family members, and others, typically with arsenic, poisons, and drugs. Among the notorious female prisoners of that era was a Sarah Jane Robinson, the Boston Borgia, who poisoned 8 victims, including her husband, children, other relatives, and her landlord between 1881 and 1886. There's also another figure from Massachusetts. That was Jane, or Jolly Jane Topin, a Boston nurse and one of the most prolific American serial killers in history, convicted in 1902 for the murders of 12 family members, associates, and patients from 1895 to 1901. And apparently, that last one reportedly confessed to a total of 31 killings, and authorities suspected probably more.
Wow.
And this is ironic because after I wrote this story, I did have a terrible dream that Meg became a serial killer. This is probably where it potentially came from.
Yeah, it's making sense now.
Now we know.
It's a bit out of character for me.
Oh, you think? I mean, you don't want to go be a doctor for $25, right?
No.
Be a tough place to potentially be a doctor. But let's give a quick shout out to our sources. Wikipedia. Love you as always. And BangorDailyNews.com had a cool little article. Make sure you guys check that out as well. We do have a quote. Do you want to read it?
Sure.
All right. You seem excited.
There's a quality of life in Maine which is this singular and unique. I think it's absolutely a world unto itself. By Jamie Waith.
Beautiful. I thought it was fitting. I wanted to leave it with a positive vibe of how beautiful Maine really is, even with something as terrible as this. Make sure you guys go and check out the Beard Laws Studio. We also have the updated map there, or you can go to Yortown.com. You can check out the interactive map, and we put a pin right in Maine as well. And if you have any recommendations on stories, states, anything, please let us know. Shoot it over to the Beard Laws Instagram, metabeardlaws.com, or anywhere. This was a good one. What do you think?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. You have any suggestions you want to do already while we're on the show and I'll probably forget about, but maybe I'll remember, or should we just go for it?
Just go for it.
We're just going to go for it. Again, another one bites the dust as far as shows, and that where Maine is going to be, it's going to put us down to 16 states left. How cool.
We're getting closer.
We're getting closer all the time. And then we're just going to continually recycle some states. But either way, can't thank you enough for taking some time out of your busy day, week, morning, afternoon, lunch. Maybe you're on the toilet. But we can't thank you enough for hanging out with us on the Yortown Podcast. That's all I got. You got anything else?
Nope.
All right. We'll be back next week. Take care, everybody. Okay, bye.
Bye.